Heaven and hell. When most people think about the afterlife, the first image that pops into their head is heaven and hell. It's the ultimate two-option system. Imagine life as a giant exam. Everything you do, every choice you make, gets recorded. At the end, when your time is up, the results come in, pass or fail. Pass the test? Welcome to heaven. Eternal happiness, no sickness, no sadness. Think endless light, golden streets, angelic choirs, or depending on who you ask, a paradise garden with rivers of milk and honey. Heaven is sold as the perfect reward, a place where everything you ever lost is restored and all pain finally ends. But if you fail, then comes hell. And hell is not subtle. In Christianity, it's described as eternal fire, endless torment, and a total separation from God. In Islam, Jahannam is a blazing pit with levels of punishment that match the severity of your sins. Even outside these faiths, cultures have imagined dark realms where wrongdoers pay for eternity. It's the cosmic version of maximum security prison. Now, the idea of heaven and hell isn't just about scaring people, it's about order. It tells you that life matters, that justice doesn't end at the grave, that even if someone escapes punishment here on earth, they won't escape it forever. But interpretations vary wildly. Some Christians argue hell is eternal fire. Others say it's just total oblivion. And some modern thinkers suggest it's more like a self-made state of being. Meanwhile, heaven isn't always about clouds and harps. For many believers, it's simply existing forever in the presence of God in pure joy. So, whether you see it as carrot and stick, divine justice, or the ultimate motivational poster, heaven and hell remain the most popular blueprint of the afterlife. Reincarnation. Now let's flip the script. What if death isn't the end, but a reset button? That's the idea behind reincarnation. Instead of a final judgment day, you get another shot and another and another. Basically, life is like an endless video game. Die in one level, you respawn in another body, ready to play again. This belief shows up strongly in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and even in ancient Greek philosophy. The big picture is that your soul or spirit is eternal. The body may wear out, but the soul just puts on a new costume. But then there's karma. Every action you take stacks up like points on your record. Live selfishly, cause harm, and you might come back as a worm, or live a life of hardship. Do good, grow wiser, and you move closer to escaping the cycle altogether, reaching moksha or nirvana, ultimate liberation. It's not just about punishment or reward, it's about learning. Think of it as the universe's way of giving you endless practice runs until you finally master the lesson of existence. But interpretations differ. In Hinduism, you might be reborn into a higher or lower caste depending on karma. In Buddhism, the focus is less on who you come back as and more on eventually breaking free from the cycle entirely. And in the West, reincarnation has been rebranded. People talk about past life regressions, deja vu, and soul contracts. So whether you see it as spiritual recycling, cosmic justice, or just another way to explain deja vu, reincarnation paints death not as a wall, but as a revolving door. Oblivion. And then there's the blunt option, nothing. Oblivion. Lights out. No heaven, no hell, no rebirth, just silence. For a lot of atheists and materialists, this is the most logical version of the afterlife. You die, your body shuts down, and your consciousness just disappears. It sounds terrifying to some, comforting to others. Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. The Epicureans in ancient Greece argued that death isn't a problem because when you're alive, death isn't there, and when death is there, you aren't. In other words, you never actually experience nothingness. For modern science, this view lines up with biology. The brain stops firing, so awareness ends. No karma, no judgment, no cosmic replay, just a permanent end screen. And yet, even in its simplicity, the idea of oblivion has a strange power. It makes this life feel like the main event, the only shot you get. No retakes, no respawns. That can be depressing or incredibly motivating. So whether you see it as tragic, peaceful, or brutally honest, oblivion is the ultimate minimalist afterlife. Not a place, not an experience, just the great nothing. Purgatory. Not quite heaven, not quite hell. Welcome to Purgatory. Think of it as a waiting room for souls. According to Catholic tradition, most people aren't perfectly holy when they die, but they're not wicked enough for eternal punishment either. So they go to this in-between space, a place of cleansing, refining, and spiritual scrubbing before they can finally step into heaven. In medieval Europe, purgatory became a huge part of people's imagination. Priests taught that souls there suffer, not forever, but just long enough to burn off the leftover weight of sin. For some, it was fire and torment. For others, it was more like a long, painful detox for the soul. What made it powerful was the idea that the living could help the dead. Prayers, almsgiving, and especially the famous indulgences, those church-issued pardons, were believed to shorten someone's time in purgatory. This belief was so strong it fueled entire economies and eventually sparked Martin Luther's anger during the Reformation. Today, purgatory is still official Catholic doctrine, though modern believers often see it less as a torture chamber and more as a spiritual hospital, a place where the soul heals and grows before meeting God, the underworld. Long before heaven and hell became the headline act, many ancient cultures believed in something simpler, the underworld. Not always good, not always bad, just the place you go when you die. In ancient Greece, it was Hades, a shadowy realm beneath the earth with rivers like the Styx that souls had to cross. Some made it to the Elysian fields, a paradise for heroes, but most people drifted around as pale shades, neither tortured nor rewarded. The Norse called it Hell, ruled by a goddess of the same name. Again, not exactly flames and pitchforks, just a cold gray land where most souls ended up unless they died gloriously in battle, in which case they got an upgrade to Valhalla. And in Egypt, the Duat was an elaborate afterlife maze. The dead faced trials, tests, and even a weighing of the heart against a feather. Fail the test and your soul was devoured. Pass it and you entered eternal paradise. The underworld wasn't about moral judgment in the way heaven and hell are. It was more about continuity, death as another land with its own rules and rulers. So if heaven is reward and hell is punishment, the underworld is just bureaucracy, a continuation of existence where the dead keep living in a different state, waiting for whatever comes next. Astral Realms. Now we're leaving behind fire and shadows and heading into something much more mystical, the Astral Realms. In this view, when you die, you don't go up or down, you shift into a higher plane of reality. Esoteric traditions, theosophy, and New Age spirituality describe the astral world as layers stacked on top of our own. Think of it like dimensions of energy. Some planes are bright and full of light, peaceful gardens, crystal cities, and beings of pure energy. Others are darker and heavier, shaped by fear and desire. Where you land depends on your spiritual development. The astral realms aren't just for the dead either. Mystics, shamans, and modern astral travelers believe you can visit them while alive, through meditation, dreams, or out-of-body experiences. So death in this system is basically a permanent login to a reality you may have already sampled. Here, the afterlife isn't about punishment or reward, it's about vibration. The idea is that your soul naturally rises or sinks to the plane that matches your energy. If you've lived in love and wisdom, you'll ascend to higher realms. If you've clung to greed and fear, you might find yourself stuck in a denser layer until you learn to let go. Ancestral spirit world. Not every culture sees death as a departure to some distant paradise or pit. For many indigenous traditions around the world, the afterlife is much closer to home, the ancestral spirit world. In this belief, the dead don't vanish. They remain present, watching over their families, guiding their communities, and sometimes even stepping in to protect or warn. Among African traditions, Native American tribes, Pacific Islanders, and countless others, ancestors are not just remembered, they are active members of the living world. Instead of heaven or hell, the focus here is on connection. When you die, you join a vast family tree that stretches back through generations. You're welcomed among the ancestors, and in turn, you're expected to help those still on Earth. This worldview changes everything. Death isn't a lonely exile, it's graduation into elderhood on a cosmic scale. The dead become advisors, guardians, and sometimes disciplinarians, keeping communities in check. Even today, you see traces of this everywhere. Libations poured to honor the dead, altars with photos and offerings, or prayers to those who came before us. In cultures with ancestral afterlives, immortality doesn't mean leaving Earth forever. It means living on through memory, tradition, and spiritual presence. Universalism. Instead of some people being saved and others damned forever, Universalism says everyone eventually makes it. No soul left behind. In this view, God's love is so powerful, so infinite, that it doesn't stop at death. Sure, people may face consequences for their actions, some kind of purification, correction, or tough lessons, but in the end, even the worst of the worst will be restored. Hell, if it exists at all, is temporary. This idea shows up in early Christianity with thinkers like Origen, who believed God's plan was to reconcile all creation. It reappears in modern times, especially with progressive Christians and philosophers who argue eternal punishment doesn't match an all-loving God. Universalism isn't about cheap forgiveness. It's about hope, the belief that the story ends with healing, not endless suffering. For some, it's the most compassionate afterlife, justice and mercy, with eternity as a kind of cosmic reunion. So instead of a universe split between saints and sinners forever, Universalism imagines the ultimate happy ending, where every soul, no matter how lost, eventually finds its way back home.